Hi, this is Jim Sackman. This is your Focal Point Business Coach, and I want to talk to you about the way to wealth again. And this time, I want to talk to you about it in practice. So, by in practice, I mean a real world example and how numbers flow through these formulas and how they work in a business. This is not a good case; it's a bad case, and it's recent, and it's a public company that I follow called Enphase, and but it comes out of their Q4 earning or their Q3 earnings call, which happened a couple of weeks ago. So here we go. Um, Enphase had a stock and it went down. Why did that happen? Pretty simply, they talked about a price reduction for their products, and they sell solar power converters, and they realize there's a lot more competition in the market, and they to maintain their market state, they had to lower their price. Well, what that meant on top of that is they saw softness in the market because they hadn't reduced their prices yet, and so they pre-announced that they're going to miss their Q4 revenue. They're going to do though that pretty significantly, although they said beyond Q4 they expect a return to sort of normal numbers. Next, they announced a layoff, which is they would call an OpEx reduction, but that's what that means. It's a layoff. And they've announced that publicly as well in filings post their conference call. In the longer term, there are two issues that went relatively unstated, but in more or less terms. And the first of that is a gross margin reduction where they talked about approximately a 5% reduction in the long-term gross margins of the business. And then secondly, the thing they don't really talk about, although other solar power companies do talk about it, is changes in the regulatory environment and the tax environment mean that it's unclear how the entire solar market is going to perform in the future. So all of those things combine to drive down the stock. But let's take a look at what the price reduction means to things. And the price reduction and the gross margin reduction, by the way, are completely linked. So the reason the gross margin is going down is because Enphase is reducing prices. It's not because their costs went up. So revenue will decrease by $7 million, and that flows directly through to gross margin. And so that means if you think about how much dollars you have to spend less on the company, in general, spend inside the company, it's $7 million. But from a gross margin standpoint, that's a much bigger change. So this was, let me kind of give you the percentages here. Originally, they were averaging about 100 million a quarter. That will go down in a price reduction to 93 million a quarter. That's a 7% change. That same 7% goes from 30 million in gross margin to 23% gross, or 23 million gross margin. That's well over 20% reduction. So a 7% reduction in revenue led to a over 20% reduction in gross margin. And all of that has to do with the change in the way that you've subtracted out that cost of goods sold or the price of their product, which remains constant in that same amount. So to make the 93 million instead of the 100 million still costs you $70 million. So that's why the percentage is so much higher. Now, they've said they're going to compensate by an OpEx reduction of 7%, but that won't compensate for that. And why I say that is that big gross margin percentage change of over 20% is exactly what you need to reduce OpEx by to maintain the exact same level of profitability. So having a 7% layoff is nice, but it's not going to provide a direct one-for-one match at the bottom line. And so what does that mean? This new model implies from approximately a $500,000 loss, and I actually expect quite a much larger one in Q4, but in an ongoing basis, about a $500,000 profit, they're going to go to around a $3.5 million loss, and maybe potentially slightly more. And that is a big deal for a company that's in the growth phase of its business, and that's why the stock went down. So if that makes sense, I hope that helps people understand that that's why you flow numbers through, and even small changes in some numbers can become big changes at the bottom line. So this is Jim Sackman. Change your business, change your life, and have a great day.